Carol here, a little bit of upcycling today. I bought this bag from a second-hand warehouse really, where things were sold by the kilo. So it's really too old to be used and it's all scruffy and beaten up. But I was intrigued by the clasp, so I'm going to take the clasp off, draw around the pattern and see what I can do about making a new bag for myself. So the first thing to do is unscrew these little screws, put them all in this pottery sheep that one of my kids made, because these screws are going to be off for a while I'm making the rest of the bag. I'm not fast at doing anything and I'm not a tidy person either, so I know I've got to keep them safe. I always forget to say this. Do please like it if you like it and subscribe. I did think about trying to use the original zips, but they were just past it and discoloured and things, so I'm just going to be using the clasps and I'm going to be using the pattern. So I'm going to take it apart and draw around the original pattern. With my trusty seam ripper, it all came apart quite easily. I'm left with 3 pattern pieces, the back, the front and the bottom. Now I can see what surface space I have to work with. So this is what I'm going to use, Marty Michel's template pieces. Could have done embroidery, but I'm going to do patchwork. I bought these from a second-hand sewing fair. I fancy these tumbling blocks. These are made with 60-degree angled diamonds, of which you cut 3 in 3 different pieces of material to make a square. So the idea is you cut a dark, a middle and a light. So it looks like there's a 3D effect, if you will. So I'm going to make it scrappy, as nearly always. These templates are really good because you can just go through your scrap bag and pull out all those tiny bits that you haven't used. Then you can layer a few bits of material together and cut them out with your rotary cutter. And it has like a hole so you can put a pencil through it, mark even the seam allowances. So it's quite useful. So the idea is having, like I said, a dark colour, a medium colour and a lighter colour. And I have heard some people saying that it's more effective as well, even if you use like a solid colour for maybe the top diamond. It might be something to try. So I'm going to make enough of these to cover one side of the bag. When I've got all my diamonds, light, medium, dark, cut out, I'm making each block. The dark is always on the right hand side and the medium on the left. And I'm going to sew them together first. I'm pinning it. You do have to be really precise with this bit, so it's best to just pin it, I think. I've even drawn out all the seam allowances as well, so I can see exactly where to stop and start. And then I'm going to finger press it to the darker side, and then I'm going to put my top on, like my lid on the box. So to do this, I'm going to pin it again, and first I'm going to sew this side with the seam allowance pressed to the darker side, and I'm only going to sew to the seam allowance. I'm not going to sew over. So I'm really sewing point to point. So this side first. Starting that 1/4 inch in. I'm pulling that seam allowance out the way so I'm not getting it caught up. And then I'm going to twist it round and do the other side. Pin it again. I'm only going to sew again, point to point. Really accurately in the middle and pulling the seam allowance out the way. And that's it. That's how I've been doing these cubes. So these are all angled the same. So it's the same thing when you sew all of the cubes together. Quality control. And then I'm going to flatten it out. I will iron these once they're all done before sewing them all together. To flatten it at the back, I'm going to twist them all going in the same direction. And then right in the middle, push down with my finger so everything's really nice and flat. And then give it a press. I'm going to do a few more of these and make sure it covers the front pattern piece. And when it does, I'm going to quilt it. So I've pressed it all flat on the back, and now I'm going to put a wadding in the middle. So it's just a normal batting, whatever you've got left out of your scraps, because you don't need that much. And I'm going to quilt it. So I just quilted it by hand. I just put a bit of scrap sheet on the back, and then I've cut it out to the shape of the pattern. So that's the front done, but I'm not going to leave the sheet as a lining, so I have to cut out a lining fabric for the back, front and the bottom. So this was me in contemplation. I had 2 bits of this scrap woolly bits of material out, but it didn't really matter anyway because I do end up sewing the lining. Like when I put the bag together, what should have been the lining went on the outside of the bag. So, I mean, I could have undone it and re-sewed it the way I intended, but I didn't feel like it made that much difference to warrant unpicking, so it's been left as it was. After cutting out the pieces, I'm going to mark the middle. This is going to make it easier to sew together. And I'm also going to put on this interfacing because it's really flimsy fabric and I need it to be more sturdy. Looking at their construction, they've used what looks like cardboard, to be honest, along the top to make it thicker, where the clasps grip the fabric. I'm not going to use cardboard. I've got some Jiffy Tex, which is just like a thick material that I'm going to just cut out to that shape. It's about 1 centimetre wide all along the clasp. There, you see, so that when it goes into the clasp and I screw down the screws, the fabric won't be too thin and just slide out. And obviously anything that's going in the clasp, it won't be seen anyway, so I can just zigzag all around the top of there to keep it in place. So now I'm on to the back of the bag. I'm going to put a zip in. I've cut out a rectangle, marked on the back where I want the zip to go. It's about 1 centimetre wide, and then the length of the zip. Pin it into place. There's lots of tutorials on YouTube showing you how to do this, and it's really easy and very satisfying to do because it's easy yet effective. And I love having a contrasting colour for a pocket, so when you open your zip and peek in, it's a really nice colour. So we've sewed the pocket to the back of the bag, right sides together. And then I'm going to cut down that centre line so that I can turn it inside out. So you can get a nice clean cut at the sides. You're going to make these angled pieces. So it looks all nice and flat when you turn it the other way around. So we're going to pull the pocket through, press it down with my fingers first and then give it a nice old iron. Sometimes when you do this, you think, oh, it's not looking good, but it's amazing what the iron will do. And then we just have to pop in the zip. So pin it down and stitch all the way around that rectangle. Can you see? With your zipper foot. All the way around as close as possible. Okay, last step. This is sewn in, sewed around, and now I'm just going to turn up this, and then I'm just going to sew all around here. And I'm just going to be careful to not sew this. Just going to peel this back and sew all so. Okay. Isn't this so easy? Can't believe it, can you? Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Red colour. Now the only thing that's left is to sew it all together. I'm very sorry about this shot. I don't know what I was doing. So I'm pinning the middle parts that we marked, the bottom of the bag and the front of the bag. I'm pinning the middle together. I start by the middle so that it's not wonky. And I'm going to sew all the way around. Okay. So I'm doing, as usual, a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And I will start and stop sewing at a 1/4 inch at each side too. Okay, so this is where I am. And this is me when I discover I've sewn the lining to the back. Oh, what I've done. Oh, I've sewn both pockets to this old shirt and I wanted this to be on the outside. Oh well, tough. And with that problem so efficiently resolved, I'm just going to continue doing the construction of the bag. So basically, you're making 2 bags the same, and then 1 bag is going inside the other bag. And then this with the clasp is easy to do because you only have to sew all around the top. So clip it together and sew all around. And that is basically it. I used a zigzag stitch for this one at the top, and I've got my walking foot on as well because I like that better for thicker materials. You just have to screw your screws back in. And this bag did come with a handle, so I cut off the old fake leather stuff and I kept all the hardware, and I just made another one out of the scrap fabrics that I had. I feel like it has to have some sort of bag handle because there's these rings on the top of the bag to hook your handle into, but if not, I would rather have not had a handle at all because I don't think it looks particularly, I think it looks nicer without a handle, but I made one because there was one. I was going to keep my makeup in it, but this is the extent of my makeup, so I think it'll be used for sewing. Yeah, but at EPP, much more my style. Thank you so much for watching. Has anyone even made it to the end? Happy upcycling. Bye-bye.